Have you ever stopped to think about what really happens when the lights go out? What lies behind the silence in the twilight that seems to watch every move? Studies show that in the dark, our brains tend to create shapes and sounds that don't exist, trying to protect us from what we cannot see. But what if, for a moment, it wasn't imagination? What if what we fear is really there? This question became more than hypothetical for Eduardo, Bruno, and Andre on a night that was supposed to be pure fun. Lifelong friends, the three decided, to camp in Eduardo's backyard, a space that symbolized safety. With a tall fence separating the yard from the dense forest, they believed nothing could cross that couldn't reach them. That October 14th began like any other autumn evening. The trio set up the tent under the last rays of sunlight, talking about how the night would unfold. Eduardo brought a surprise element, a VHS tape taken from his father's Forbidden collection. "This movie is rare and probably scary," he said with a mischievous smile. Despite their laughter, the relaxed atmosphere would soon give way to tension. As soon as the movie began, the three friends noticed something strange. The grainy, poorly edited footage showed a motionless desert landscape accompanied by a disturbing soundtrack of distorted noises. Soon, humanoid figures appeared on the screen. They moved erratically, as if each part of their body was controlled by a different command. Bruno tried to laugh to ease the discomfort. "What kind of movie is this? Looks like some film student's project." But his trembling voice betrayed the growing unease. Eduardo, on the other hand, was fascinated. His curiosity wouldn't allow them to stop the tape, even as the backyard's temperature seemed to drop, accompanied by a sudden wind that rustled the forest leaves. It is known that curiosity activates specific areas of the brain, such as the prefrontal cortex, which drives us to seek information even in the face of potential risks. This force kept the three boys glued to the screen, even as strange sounds began to emerge from outside. A loud crack made Andre flinch. "Did you hear that?" he asked. Eduardo laughed nervously. "It's probably just an animal, or the wind," but deep down, they all knew it wasn't. The motion sensor light on the fence flickered, momentarily illuminating a tall, dark figure standing near the trees. "Did you see that?" Bruno asked, but no one responded. Silence filled the tent, broken only by the sound of the tape still playing. The figure began to move again. Its form seemed to shift as it walked, as if cloaked in liquid shadows. There was no sound of footsteps, but the creature approached. Eduardo turned off the tent's internal light and signaled for his friends to stay quiet. "If we stay silent, maybe it won't see us," he whispered. But it was impossible to ignore the sound of branches snapping under the weight of that thing. Studies on human reactions to fear show that in extreme threats, people typically enter one of three states: fight, flight, or freeze. For the three friends, fear had paralyzed them. It was as if their bodies refused to move, even knowing they needed to flee. When the creature came within meters of the tent, Eduardo made the decision. "Run to the house now," he said, breaking the silence. The three bolted. Andre tripped, but Bruno helped him up. The figure followed, but seemed slow, as if savoring each moment. When they finally reached the door, they locked it quickly while the creature remained outside, staring at them through the window. Inside the house, the group tried to process what had happened. The tape was still in the tent, along with their belongings. Bruno, in a moment of courage or desperation, suggested, "What if it's connected to the movie? We don't know what that thing was, but it seemed to respond to what we watched." Eduardo shook his head nervously. "That doesn't make sense, Bruno. We can't just blame the tape." However, deep down, they all knew something had changed since they put that VHS on. Andre broke the silence with a question that would echo among them. What if it's not just about the movie? What if it's tied to something bigger? The moral dilemma they faced was clear. Should they try to retrieve the tape and understand, What was happening, or simply forget everything and hope the creature would disappear? Each choice seemed fraught with consequences, but none guaranteed safety. Bruno couldn't take his eyes off the window. The outline of the creature was visible even at a distance. He felt a growing weight on himself. Perhaps it was fear, perhaps something more. "We need to destroy the tape," he said, breaking the silence. "If this is connected to it, we can end this now." While they debated, the creature remained outside, as if waiting patiently. Eduardo finally made the decision not to take risks. "It doesn't matter what it wants. We need to wait until morning. Maybe daylight will drive it away." The idea brought some temporary relief, but the fear remained. Throughout that long night, they reflected on what they had experienced. The curiosity that led them to watch the tape now seemed like a terrible mistake. But was it really? Or was curiosity just an inevitable force that guided them towards something destined to happen? The supernatural always carries symbolic weight. It challenges us to confront the unknown and question our limits. For the three friends, that night wasn't just about fear, but about discovering that there are forces beyond our understanding. And often, what we don't understand is what scares us the most. When the first rays of sunlight pierced through the house's curtains, the boys finally allowed themselves to breathe a sigh of relief. The creature had disappeared, but the marks of its presence remained, deep footprints on the ground and broken branches that had previously been intact. They knew they would never be able to forget that night. Eduardo cautiously opened the house door and looked out at the yard. Everything seemed calm, but the tape was still there, inside the tent. He looked at his friends. "What do we do with it?" Bruno responded firmly. "Destroy it. It doesn't matter what it is. We can't leave it here." Together, the three decided to burn the tape, believing it would end the nightmare. The fire quickly consumed the VHS, but as the ashes were carried away by the wind, the feeling that something lingered stayed with them. The sun might have brought temporary relief, but the unanswered questions would continue to haunt them. That morning, Eduardo, Bruno, and Andre learned a harsh truth. Some doors should never be opened. Curiosity is powerful, but the price of exploring the unknown can be higher than we are willing to pay. Yet at the same time, they understood that the fear of the unknown is part of what makes us human. It challenges us to grow, to face the inexplicable, and above all, to never forget that there are mysteries the world may never allow us to unravel.